preparing any surface to do a VFI coating, first steps are always to clean the surface using VFI 1009 cleaner and a bug sprayer, 10-to-1 ratio. That means for every 1 gallon, you're going to need 12 ounces of VFI 1009 cleaner. The first step is to do your details and your perimeter with 12-inch fabric.
So now we're going to run the perimeter of our roof with our 12-inch fabric. Whenever we're using fabric, one of the most important tools is a good sharp pair of scissors. Never try to cut this fabric with a knife or a razor blade. It'll just curl up and be almost impossible to lay down flat. When we're doing the 12-inch around the perimeters, the first areas we want to address are our corners. So I pre-cut a piece of fabric here, but you can do it on the job site. Cut yourself a little 12 by 12. Lay it down on the edges. Take your scissors and make your cuts. Lay it down, and now you have your corner. So once we've got our corners detailed, now we can tie them together with a long piece of 12-inch fabric working off of the roll. Just like when we were doing the 6-inch fabric along the seams, you want to pre-run your roll to make sure it's running straight. I also want to make sure that I can get over the edge with it, leave a little bit of fabric exposed. And I want to make sure that I overlap my corner fabric by 4 inches minimum. Once I've got that all figured out, just like doing the 6-inch fabric, take your brush. Even though this coating's still a little wet underneath, I don't want to put it right to what I've just done. I need an additional coat of coating over that fabric. Make sure too, if you're coating over the edge of the roof, which we recommend, that you're putting coating down there as well. And now take your fabric, relax it in, use your brush before you go back into your bucket, set it on the top, but don't try to set the edge just yet over the outside. We're going to roll the fabric back up until we've got wet coating showing, and then continue this application. Once again, very generous coat of the 640 acrylic base coat underneath the fabric. You just can't have enough underneath. Even though we got a paintbrush, we're not painting. Roll that roll back out. Set it in the wet coating. Make sure you don't have any fish mouths or voids. And now that I've moved a little bit farther down, I can set this on the edge. There's no tension from the roll that's pulling this fabric away. Okay. Once we've cleaned our surface as well as possible, the next thing we're going to do is go take care of all of our details. Now, in this instance, we're looking at a pipe detail. PVC pipe. Typically, you're going to find they've got lead boots on. But when you're doing a full fabric system, what we like to do is cut the lead boot off, clean the pipe up. If this was bare PVC, we need to scuff sand it with some rough sandpaper. So now we want to cut skirt flashings to go around the pipe and a target to sit over the top of the skirts. So we'll take a piece of 12-inch fabric, cut our skirts into it, make sure that the fabric is going to go around the pipe and lap over itself by 4 inches. 3 to 4 inches. Once we've got the fabric set in the VFI 640 acrylic base coat, then we're going to come and hit our target, put more base coat down, lay the target on top of the fingers, and now we have a seamless attachment from the roof deck to the vent pipe. No need for a lead boot, as it's going to prevent the water from getting down inside this seam. Remember that when you're cutting fabric, use scissors, not a knife. Once I've got my skirt flashing all cut, I'm going to take my VFI 640 acrylic base coat, saturate the pipe heavily. Again, cannot put enough coating underneath the fabric. Even though I have a paintbrush, I'm not painting. Also want to put it down here on the roof deck where the skirts are going to touch. So wrap it all the way around with a nice generous coat on the roof deck around the pipe. Now we're going to take our fabric, and where the skirt comes to a point, I want to put right at the transition of the pipe to the deck. I have not found any easier way to do this than with my hands. This is why you always see me using gloves while I do this application. So now my fabric is getting ready to lap over where I've already set the fabric to the pipe. Whenever fabric laps over fabric, you need more coat. Don't count on what you put on the first time to wet this other piece of fabric down. It just doesn't work that way. Also notice that we're paying more attention to how tight we get the fabric around the pipe. Not so much about the fingers. We'll get the fingers set down really well, but what we want is a nice solid fabric around this pipe. So now we're going to make our target. Now, target's going to fit right over the top of the pipe, over our fabric that we just did. I like to round the corners of my targets. This makes it so that we don't have the strong edges on the outside. So I just folded it in half twice. Take my scissors, make a nice rounded cut. Now I have a rounded target. Then I want to take my brush and put some coating on top of this pipe. Once I've done that, find the center of my fabric target, lay it down there, and I now have a round outline for making my cut for my target. So a generous coat of VFI 640 acrylic base coat where we're going to lay the fabric. Try not to brush back into your skirt flashings or fingers because you'll peel them right off. This is not dry yet, so you want to put this down going with your finger flashings. Once I've got a nice generous coat down, just take my target, try and put it smooth side up over the top of all of the fingers. Again, I use my hand typically to do this. And now I can brush the target, smooth out all the wrinkles and voids, make sure I don't have any fish mouths along the perimeter of it. And there is your pipe flashing. Now that we've done all of our details, it's time to put down our 40-inch fabric. Whenever fabric meets fabric, we need a minimum 3-inch overlap. The red Titex line on the outside of the fabric marks your 3-inch line. Here's the edge of my 12-inch fabric. I just want to line this right up to the edge of my 12-inch fabric. Before putting any VFI 640 acrylic base coat down, we want to first make sure that our 40-inch roll is running straight. So I'll put my roll out, I'll lay it out to where I have at least a 3-inch, 4-inch overlap on either side of the existing fabric around the perimeter, and then I'll pull my roll back and just make sure that I've got it running straight along the line of the 12-inch fabric. Make any adjustments I need to make, and then roll it back up, leaving about 1 to 2 feet exposed on the edge. So I've left 1 to 2 feet of my fabric out here on the roof. I'm going to pull it away, and then I'll load my brush up with VFI 640 acrylic base coat, putting a generous amount down onto the roof. And you want to make sure that your brush just glides and that you're getting a bleed on all sides of that fabric roll. Once I've got a good layer down, I'm going to set my roll by just letting it relax down into the wet coating. These two lines right here are the middle. Those are the ones that I'm really concerned with when I first set my roll. I'm going to stripe it right down the middle, and then I'm going to work from a 45-degree angle out to the edges, setting that fabric into the wet coating. Notice that I have not gone back into the bucket to get more product yet. This is very important because I cannot put too much coating on underneath the fabric, but I can put too much over the fabric. The thicker it is over the fabric, the longer it takes it to dry. We want just enough coating on top of the fabric so that we don't see the white or the stitching. So now that we've started our roll straight, we want to roll the fabric up until we see nothing but wet coating line on the side of the fabric. So now I'm going to load my brush up again with more product. I'm going to put it in the middle of the roll, and notice I'm going with the roll back and forth. I'm not going like this. If I go to the roll and I hit it, I'm going to knock it offline. So take this first brush load, and run it with the roll. If I hit the roll, it's just going to go side to side. Now again, I cannot put too much coating on underneath this fabric. I'm going to just load it up. Make sure I got nothing but wet coating going all the way through. You can go as far away from the roll as you can reach, and the coating stays wet in here. The fabric always needs to go into wet coating. Now I'm going to, with my brush, grab the middle of my roll, slowly roll it back. At this point, I'm going to stop my roll where I've got the exposed line. Now I'm going to take my brush, without going back into my bucket, set that fabric into the wet coating. If I need more coating at this point in time, that's when I would go back into my bucket and get a little bit more. I feel like I do right about here, so put my brush in the middle of what I'm trying to cover and move it around. So now when we're ready to finish off our run, this is the end of the roof. If I step out here, I'm dead. I'm off the roof. So I need to leave myself a little bit of space without any coating that I can walk on. I leave that area, I roll my roll out so that I'm to the edge without having any coating down there, because what I'm going to have to do now is come in here, get my 3-inch overlap from where my 12-inch fabric terminates, make a cut, and cut this fabric off. So now we pre-cut our termination of this roll. We're going to go ahead and lay it out and finish off this run. Again, can't say it enough. Generous amount of coating underneath that fabric. Cannot put too much on underneath. You can put too much on top. Now I'm going to grab my fabric. Let it relax down in the middle. Take my brush, run it down the middle stripe, and then set that fabric in the wet coating. Any wrinkles or voids that I get in this system should be able to work out with my brush. Don't have to pick it up and stretch it and pull it. That creates voids, creates fish mouths, weak spots in the fabric. Try and just let that fabric relax into that wet coating.